Well, hello again. Pastor Ray Barnett here with you. Glad you could be with me for another broadcast on God's answers for anxiety and depression. As always, I want to wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening, depending on what time you're watching this broadcast. Hey, it's another beautiful day here in upstate New York, once again in my backyard, which has become a convenient location for me. Schedule's pretty busy. Actually, my schedule is very busy. And, well, this is as nice a setting in upstate New York as any. You're going to be hearing my neighbor doing some work over there. Let's just hope it's not too terribly distracting, but we'll see. In any case, it'll be good practice for you to get used to the annoyances that we all have to put up with in life in this noisy, chaotic world. Yesterday, I was talking to you about mental toughness, and I want to continue on that just for a little bit, because mental toughness is absolutely indispensable for conquering anxiety, depression, and any type of mental health disorder. But it's also an indispensable attribute for life for everybody. Mental toughness. We definitely need more of it in this world. You know, mentioned about my neighbor over here is doing some work. I don't think it's going to be too terrible. We'll have to see. For those of you who've been watching since last year, you know that I have an uncanny way of attracting trains, planes, a special ops helicopter, a dog. If you remember some of these incidents from last year, just have an uncanny way of setting up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Well, that's, as they say, the story of my life. But in any case, you know, we have to develop more mental toughness, all of us. But particularly those of you who do struggle with anxiety, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, depression, mental health disorders. Mental toughness is what's going to get you through. Now, yesterday I was sharing with you the paradox that nervous symptoms actually provide for you an opportunity to build more mental toughness than the average person has. Why is that? Well, it's pretty simple. You suffer more frequently from disturbing sensations. I was telling a story, I'm not sure I've shared this with you before. I was telling a story to some of the young people that I teach. I teach how to study the Bible and exegete passages of Scripture. And a few years ago, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago now, after I had my heart surgery, a year or two after that, I developed these very strong and very frightening palpitations, heart palpitations, strong in the sense that they were violent. And the technical term is a premature ventricular contraction, PVCs. Some of you have them. Mine were very, very dynamic, very strong. I mean, it felt like an explosion, literally like an explosion in my chest. It was scary. And having only had open heart surgery just a few years prior to that, of course, I didn't know if I was having a stroke or if I was having some type of, a valve issue, or I didn't know what was going on. Now, the short version of that long story is that I had to go back to the cardiologist, told them about my symptoms. They ran some tests and so on. And in the end, they couldn't really find anything that was functionally wrong with my heart. And then at that point, I began to say, well, if there's nothing wrong functionally, then it must be just another nervous symptom, not one that I've ever had before. And so I treated it as such. I said, and these were explosions. This was not just like, I mean, PVCs can be like, I've heard them described by one person as like when you just run sneakers through the dryer, just kind of rumbling, kind of a fluttering. People describe it in different ways. Mine were explosions. Mine were just like, wow, my heart would just explode. And again, when I did, I would feel when that happened, I would feel a pain not only in my chest, but a pain in my back. And obviously, it concerned me. But once I learned that this was merely another nervous symptom, one I had not had before, I just blew it off. And why was I able to do that? Mental toughness. Once I was assured that I'm not having a stroke, that I wasn't having an issue with one of my valves, and so on, then I said, hey, it's just my nervous system. Now, once I adapted the attitude of saying, I'm just not going to pay attention to them, my chest could explode, I'm just not going to pay attention to it. Remember, I've been checked out now by a medical professional, or professionals plural. I had seen more than one cardiologist. I saw a electrophysiologist, specialist in heart palpitations and so forth. Okay, so I've been assured that we can't find anything wrong with the heart. It looks good. So I said, okay, just another nervous symptom. New one, and a frightening one, but just another nervous symptom. And treated it as such, and whenever it would happen, boom, this explosion in my chest, I just didn't pay it any attention. Now, for those of you who have this symptom of palpitations, rapid heartbeat, tachycardia, and so on, you understand that this is not all that easy to just not pay attention to it. But when you've developed mental toughness, it's a doable thing. I could explain more about where I had some of these symptoms. They were at very inconvenient times, that's for sure. But anyone around me never knew it, unless I explained it, let's say, to my wife or someone. No one knew it, because I didn't give any expression. No facial expressions or something from my mouth or exclamations. And that's all due to mental toughness. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that if you have, and obviously you do, that's why you watch this broadcast, you have symptoms that are related strictly to the nervous system, you have a built-in trainer to build mental toughness, which, as I said earlier, is not only necessary for you to overcome your symptoms of anxiety, depression, and so on, but you need it for life. Life is not easy, and it's not easy for anyone. Let me just say here, I don't favor people who make a career out of complaining. I don't know how you feel about that, but I just don't favor people who just make a career out of complaining about this and their parents and everything, I've never really been that way. I don't know why. Life is life. You either go through it, or you either eat life or life eats you. That's how I've always seen it. And I don't favor people who are always grousing, complaining, and that whole thing. But the problem with that is that they never develop any mental toughness. So there's always someone to blame. It's either the government, it's the parents and the government, it's the husband, it's the wife, it's the kids. And there you go. That's not what you want. You want to be able to develop a state of mind that is always in gear to face and to overcome anything that comes your way. So, for you that have mental symptoms, or I should say nervous symptoms, or you have a mental health disorder, You have a built-in trainer. And you see, if you're clever enough to pick up on what I'm saying, there's two ways to look at your symptoms. One is, oh, these things are controlling my life, and I have no doubt that they may be. But you also have an option by the function of your will to say, I will not have these symptoms dominate my life. I'm not going to have them keep constraining me to avoid issues, avoid people, avoid crowds, and so on. You have a built-in trainer, and that's something I adopted as my, well, I wouldn't call it a motto, but a mindset decades and decades ago. I said, how many people have a built-in system where they can be constantly in training to develop a strong mind or mental toughness? And I mentioned to you yesterday, we associate, or many people associate, mental toughness with special forces, heroes in military, elite athletes, and what have you. But they're not the only people. And believe me, I thank God for our military and what they do, and special forces in particular. But they're not the only people who at least have the potential to be very strong mentally. You, who at the moment are weak, have a built-in trainer in which you can become exceptionally strong mentally. And believe me, that will take you a long, long way in this life. So think of it this way. Your symptoms which have troubled you, your symptoms which have tormented you, your symptoms which have ruined your life. Now look at it from the other point of view. You have an opportunity that honestly very few people have. You have an opportunity to say, this is not going to break me. These symptoms are not going to break me. These symptoms, I'm going to use them to my advantage to develop mental toughness. And here's the double blessing. You'll get rid of the symptoms because you learn how to relax. You learn how to calm down. Some deep breaths, quoting scriptures like Psalm 34:4. I sought the Lord, and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restores my soul. There's all these promises in Psalm 23 and throughout the Bible. Deep breath. Meditate in the scriptures. Obviously praying to God. But when you begin to look at your symptoms from a different point of view, you begin to look at your symptoms as a built-in trainer that most of the population doesn't have. This is a small percentage of the population that have these type of symptoms that really dominate or control their lives. If you take a different perspective on it, and when you begin to say to yourself, guess what? I got a built-in trainer that can make me tough. Now, let me say one more thing. When you're in an area of a discipline of life and it's really, tough going, that's the last thing that you want, is to put out energy to develop mental toughness. But trust me, once you develop it, you will be glad, very glad, that you did. Because now you can face anything in life with the attitude that says, I'm not succumbing to this thing. I'm not giving, it doesn't matter what the situation is now. Once you've developed mental toughness, I'm not quitting. I'm not giving in, because you already have that fortitude. You already have that strength. And it doesn't come overnight, and it does come through almost innumerable series of trials, which, oddly enough, your symptoms provide for you. So here's what I'm asking you to do. I want you to change your perspective on your nervous symptoms, on your depression, on your panic attacks, on your anxieties. And it's difficult. We've covered this before on this broadcast. I'm not saying this is easy. This is not easy. But you're stuck with the symptoms anyway. And if you don't overcome them, they will certainly overcome you. And by the way, your body was built and designed by God to work for good. It's always working for you. We will get into that some other time, the logic of the nervous system and why it's doing what it's doing, but not now. Anyway, change. I want you to change. I want you to start to change your perspective on nervous symptoms, on your anxieties, on your depressions, and on these things, and say, you know what? I have a built-in trainer, and that trainer is going to make me tough mentally. And once you are, then you can overcome anything that comes your way. And in the end, as odd as it may seem, as paradoxical as it may seem, you now enjoy an advantage in this world that very few people do. Life is curious. Would you do that today? Would you begin to say, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, Pastor Ray. I'm going to start looking at my symptoms from a positive point of view. I'm going to look at them as a built-in trainer that's going to make me mentally tough. And after so many weeks and so many months, and you're getting tougher and tougher, and years as well, you will be able to say Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. Let me pray for you today. So, Father, I ask you to help my friends today to develop that mental toughness. Help them to see their symptoms as something that's uniquely, well, I'm reluctant to call it a gift, but it's uniquely able to provide for them a platform in which they can develop a very firm mindset that refuses to give up or to give in. I ask you also, God, by the touch of your hand of healing, to heal and deliver my friends from their anxieties, from their fears, from their depressions, from their oppressions. And I ask you, God, to do that in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Okay, I want to remind you that I'm doing these broadcasts again. It's about not quite a week, well, maybe just about a week that I've started in again. And you got to help me out by giving me a thumbs up, would you please? That keeps us on the radar. Again, as I understand YouTube, it puts you on the radar. Otherwise, I'm so far off the radar, nobody even knows I'm here, except you and me. Give me a thumbs up. Anytime you watch the broadcast, give me a thumbs up. Hit the notification button and the subscribe button if you haven't already. And we will do, and I told you this last year, we will stay in this thing together. You need to contact me, you want prayer or want me to answer a question, you're reluctant to put it in the comments, it's TFT at timefortruth.com. That's TFT at timefortruth.com. You send an email to our website and I'll get it. And you can send me a prayer request or whatever you want, okay? Thumbs up, notifications, hit subscribe, and remember you have a built-in trainer that will help you become mentally tough. God bless. See you tomorrow.